Hey everyone, and welcome to Study with Grace, where I make counseling exam content a little less overwhelming and a lot more organized. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most famous and, let's be honest, controversial figures in psychology, Sigmund Freud. Now, whether you love him, roll your eyes at him, or aren't totally sure what an Oedipus complex even is, you need to know Freud for the NCE and the CPCE. This video is your one-stop shop for everything Freud related on the exam, his psychosexual stages, the id, ego, and superego, his defense mechanisms, the infamous eros and thanatos, and yes, even dream analysis. By the end, you'll not only understand his theory, but you'll be able to recall it clearly under pressure, because who doesn't love a good multiple choice about childhood trauma and toilet training? Let's get into it. Sigmund Freud is one of the OG developmental theorists. Freud was what we call a stage theorist. He believed that personality develops in a series of universal stages, each centered around a specific source of pleasure. Unresolved conflict at any stage? That could lead to fixation, which, in Freud's world, meant quirky adult personality traits. Development, he argued, is driven by libido, not just sexual energy, but the broader life force that fuels pleasure. Seeking behaviors, especially in childhood. As we grow, that energy focuses on different body zones. How we navigate each stage shapes our future personality. Let's start by going over Freud's psychosexual stages. First is the oral stage, which occurs during the first infant year of life. The mouth is the first pleasure center, sucking, biting, feeding. If needs aren't met here, Freud believed it could lead to oral fixations in adulthood, like nail biting, overeating, and smoking. Second is the anal stage, which occurs during the toddler ages 1 through 3. Now the focus shifts to control, especially around toilet training. Strict parenting could create someone who's anal retentive, overly rigid, or perfectionist. Too lax, and you might get someone who's anal expulsive, messy, or disorganized. Third is the phallic stage, which occurs during early childhood, ages 3 to 6. This stage brings awareness of the genitals and, according to Freud, the infamous Oedipus and Electra complexes. Children develop unconscious attraction to the opposite sex parent and rivalry with the same sex one. Yes, it's controversial, but it shaped early ideas about family dynamics and identity development. Let's zoom in for a second. This stage includes one of Freud's most famous and most debated concepts, the Oedipus and Electra complexes. The Oedipus complex refers to a young boy's unconscious desire for his mother and rivalry with his father. The Electra complex, later named by Carl Jung, describes a similar dynamic in girls, desire for the father and jealousy of the mother. Freud believed that resolving this internal conflict is key to developing a healthy identity and understanding gender roles. If unresolved, it could show up in adult struggles with authority or romantic relationships. Fourth is the latency stage, which occurs in middle childhood from ages 6 to 12. Sexual energy takes a back seat. Kids focus on school, hobbies, and friendships. It's a quieter time, emotionally and developmentally. Lastly is the genital stage, which starts at adolescence and continues from age 12 and onward. Desires reawaken, but with a shift toward mature intimacy. Healthy development here depends on how well the early stages were resolved. Beyond his stage theory, Freud also offered early insights into emotional attachment, particularly how those earliest relationships formed during infancy. Freud also tied emotional attachment to the oral stage, especially during feeding. This early bond with caregivers creates a foundation for future relationships. If disrupted, it could lead to issues with trust, dependency, or intimacy later on. Though Freud didn't create attachment theory, his ideas influenced thinkers like Bowlby and Harlow. After addressing developmental stages and attachment, Freud shifted his focus to the structure of the psyche. He theorized that human behavior results from interactions among three key parts of the mind, the id, ego, and superego. The id is pure impulse. It wants pleasure now, with no regard for reality. It's present from birth and runs on the pleasure principle. Think a screaming baby demanding a bottle. The ego develops next. It's the rational part that tries to meet the id's needs in realistic ways. It runs on the reality principle, acting as the middleman. Think a referee balancing wild instincts and rules. Last comes the superego, your internalized conscience. It holds you to high moral standards and delivers guilt when you fall short. Think your inner perfectionist or your parents' voice in your head. According to Freud, mental health equals balance. Too much id, you're impulsive. Too much superego, you're anxious. Too much ego, honestly, good luck. The economy is a mess, anyways. So, why is there a floating iceberg on the screen right now? Well, Freud believed that most of our mind is actually unconscious, hidden beneath the surface, just like the bulk of an iceberg. The id sits way down deep in the unconscious. It's the part we don't see, but it drives a ton of our behavior. The superego is partly unconscious and partly conscious, kind of like the icy fog floating just below the surface. And the ego, that's the tip of the iceberg, the part of your personality you're actually aware of and trying to steer through daily life. Now that we've covered the id, ego, and superego, you're probably thinking, how does the ego survive being stuck between those two all day? Enter defense mechanisms. Freud believed the ego uses these unconscious strategies to protect us from anxiety, shame, or conflict, especially when the id wants something the superego definitely doesn't approve of. Think of them like emotional first aid kits, fast, automatic, and not always clean. These are totally normal. We all use them, but when they're used too often, they can distort reality and keep us from growing. Let's go over a few of the most classic defense mechanisms. And yes, they show up all the time on counseling exams. First is repression. This is the granddaddy of all defense mechanisms. Repression is when your brain stuffs something painful down into the unconscious. Not gone, just buried. Example, you forget a traumatic event, but it still affects how you react to things. Next is denial. Denial is straight up refusing to accept what's happening because it's too much. We all know this one. An example is saying you're fine, everything's fine, as your life burns quietly behind you. Next is projection. Projection is when you take your own uncomfortable thoughts and assign them to someone else. It's like psychological hot potato. Example, I'm not angry, you're angry. Displacement means taking your emotions out on a safer target. Example, you go home and yell at your roommate because your boss made you feel powerless. Regression is when stress sends you mentally backwards to an earlier stage of development. An example can be an adult who starts throwing tantrums or suddenly clings to comfort objects when overwhelmed. Then is sublimation. Sublimation is Freud's favorite. It's when you take all that chaotic inner energy and channel it into something socially acceptable or even productive. An example includes instead of punching a wall, you go for a run, or you write a poem or organize your entire closet. According to Freud, defense mechanisms help us cope, but if they become default reactions, they can block insight, growth, and real emotional processing. They're like crutches, helpful when needed, but you don't want to rely on them forever. Next up in Freud's framework, two forces he believed were always shaping human behavior beneath the surface, the eros and thanatos. Let's start with the eros, the life instinct. Eros drives everything that helps us survive, connect, and create. This includes things like love, sex, nurturing others, forming friendships, even engaging in art and music. In short, if it brings people together or keeps us going, it's powered by eros. But balancing that out is thanatos, the death instinct. Thanatos represents the drive toward aggression, self-destruction, and risky behavior. It's the impulse to lash out, to withdraw, or to sabotage ourselves. Freud believed that although Thanatos is usually repressed, it still influences our action in subtle or not so subtle ways. These two instincts, Eros and Thanatos, are constantly pushing against each other. One pulls us toward life, connection, and growth. The other tugs at us with impulses of destruction, chaos, or escape. Freud believed this inner tension plays a powerful role in shaping how we relate to others, how we cope with stress, and how our personality unfolds over time. Let's talk about dreams, because Freud definitely did. He believed that dreams are the royal road to the unconscious, offering sneak peeks into our deepest thoughts, fears, and desires. First, there's the manifest content. That's the part of the dream you actually remember, the storyline, the weird plot, the I was running from a talking toaster in a cornfield moment. But Freud was way more interested in the latent content. the hidden meaning beneath the dream. He believed that our unconscious thoughts and unresolved conflicts get disguised in symbolic form while we sleep. So let's say you dream your teeth are falling out. Freud might say you're dealing with anxiety about control, loss, or even repressed aggression, or, a stressful dentist appointment. But Freud loved a deeper meaning. Even if we don't interpret dreams quite like Freud did today, he sparked the idea that dreams reflect our inner world, and that's something both therapists and TikTok still talks about. All right, let's wrap up our whirlwind tour through Freud. Whether you agree with him or think he needed a long vacation, his influence on psychology is undeniable. Let's break down the key takeaways from this video. Freud was a stage theorist who introduced psychosexual development. He proposed the id, ego, and superego as parts of the personality. Freud explained behavior through unconscious desires and conflicts. He introduced key ideas like defense mechanisms, attachment through early caregiving, and dream symbolism. And he saw human motivation as a constant tug between eros and thanatos. Freud matters today because he laid the foundation for many concepts we still use, from the unconscious mind to talk therapy itself. Even though his theories are debated, his impact continues to shape counseling, psychology, and exam questions alike. Thanks so much for watching this deep dive into Freud. If this helped clarify things for your exam prep, I'd love to keep supporting you. Here's how to follow along for more content. Visit my study site for free visuals and resources. Follow on Instagram at StudyWithGraceG for mini lessons, reminders, and study tips. Subscribe on YouTube for new breakdowns every month. Don't forget to hit the bell. Join the Substack for updates, freebies, and exclusive study tools straight to your inbox. Any additional links are in the video description. Let's hear from you. Got a favorite study tip that works for you? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to share it in future videos. Or have a topic you'd like explained next? Let me know what you're stuck on and I'll add it to the list. Remember, you're not studying alone. I'm here cheering you on, one topic at a time.